Hi, this is Bob Weiss. I'm the host of Shaking Your World. Cheers.
Welcome home. Another episode of Shaking Your World here at Shakers in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on a typical October day. We're probably in the high 50s and a little bit gloomy outside, which is just perfect for everything we do in October at Shakers. We are joined today by Parker, who's got a very interesting backstory, and he's going to tell us, I don't know, all sorts of quirky little things. We're just talking about how to identify him, and he brought up the entire concept of how our society is so predicated upon what you do as really perhaps overtaking who you are. Want to go with that? Well, first and foremost, brother, welcome home. It's great to have you in the house, and thanks for playing along and being part of this thing.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting. I always find that as a loaded question of who are you? I was never a person who knew who I was going to be when I was little. And so I feel like my life has just been a reinvention after reinvention after reinvention. So I guess jack of all trades.
Okay.
Master of some.
Okay. For example?
Well, what I do now, I'm a hairdresser, creative director of Scott Free Salons here in Milwaukee, national educator for a small product company out of Stockholm, Sweden.
I've got to apologize right now and stop and say this because Scott's been cutting my hair, and I'm hardly the poster boy for what you guys do. So. My apologies.
That's okay. I don't let anybody touch mine, so it's fine. I just let it grow.
There you go.
I guess it goes the same with everybody who's in a certain profession, especially a skilled profession where you're the last person to ever get yourself taken care of. But yeah, it's a very different world now than it was 8 months ago, and so obviously with that, my life has changed drastically. I used to travel every week, be in another city, teaching on Monday, back here in Milwaukee, behind the chair on Tuesday, and then work through till Saturday, back again on an airplane going somewhere. And all that's changed. It's very different.
Well, Scott Free has got a tremendous reputation as truly cutting edge in many ways, maybe pun intended there, but you've got really the A-listers of clients that have been at your salon from day one, really.
Yeah.
And I'd have to imagine that in many ways that is a part of our society that has not been overly impacted to the degree that they still can obviously afford to come in and get your services and get pampered and taken care of. However, in the broader picture, everything has been affected. Your hours are cut back, the way you approach people, the masking in the chair, everything else has to be a completely different set of rules for you.
Yeah, and I think we find ourselves in a very unique position, I think, with being a luxury boutique salon that emphasizes the experience in a very intimate way that set us up much better than a lot of, for example, friends from all over the country that own salons in different capacities, where our business model isn't hurting us because we were already small. And so thereby scaling things back just a little bit, opening up our amazing space that we have and creating more distance between chairs, it hasn't really affected overall business. I mean, sure, everybody's taken just a little bit of a hit because you're slowing everything down, right? You're not getting double clients in, double booking, but that's really allowed us to refocus who we are and the type of service that we want to give. And in this day and age, safety is the new luxury.
Right.
And so where I have friends, say like in Detroit, that his business model, he has 50 chairs. And so he has 50 stylists, and now he can only run like 10 at a time.
Right.
You can't sustain that business model.
No.
So I feel very fortunate that, yes, we have great clientele, and I feel very, very thankful for that. I remember when we were shut down, it was my experience at the beginning. My girlfriend had COVID and it was a month of like worry, and I've never seen someone so sick. And I would get a text message from a client like, hey, I was supposed to see you today, and they would Venmo me a tip, or somebody sent a card and it had a Uber Eats gift card in it, like, hey, just thinking of you, we're all going through this. And it felt really good. Like, I didn't expect it, but just the amazing people in Milwaukee and our clientele, I think the service that we've provided and the space that we've provided has given to that, and they've given back.
Well, community is a word that in many ways is overused and overworked, but certainly what I've seen with this is that we really have a community of our clients here. We've been around for 30 odd years, and in many ways we are the epitome of a boutique joint as well. And I certainly see that when I go to see you guys at Scott Free, because it's the same kind of thing you've got, and you've got this incredibly loyal customer base.
Yeah.
And that is crucial to
Absolutely.
anybody's ability to sustain this. Now, before you were a stylist, if I saw you walking down the street, I'm not picking this out and say, yeah, that guy's a hairstylist. You defy the odds in so many ways. I see you, obviously you pulled up on your cycle today. So what did you do, man?
A little bit of everything. I started out, in the service industry when I was going to college. I waited tables. I was a line cook in the same restaurant, which is very unique, actually. Most of the time, back of the house and front of the house are not the best of friends.
Don't get along, yeah.
It was one of those things where I wanted to do everything, and I enjoyed being on the line and learning how to cook and prepare food in a fast, efficient way. And I did that during the day when lunch just wasn't as sustainable as dinners. And then I put on my tuxedo shirt and my bow tie and suspenders and wait tables at night. And I had a blast. I loved it. I loved everything about the service industry. Right after college, I went to work for Orkin Pest Control. I got into the bug business, and I lived in North Carolina, so it worked out well. It was one of those jobs that I've always been either really into science and really into art and nothing else. And so it fed that part of me where I was constantly researching and learning about insects and pests, and it was fun being a young person and walking up to, say, a doctor's house who would look at this young kid and think you don't know anything, and then show them that I'm a professional and I know more than them on the subject, and let me do my job. It was a good learning experience. Again, it was service industry. I loved everything about it. It took me all over the place. I got to fly to Atlanta. I was all up and down the eastern seaboard, troubleshooting problems.
Plenty of bugs in the Mid-South.
Tons. Yeah, it was funny. And it's interesting how that's one thing that, like everything that I've done in my past has always come to help me sometime along the road. Like, my mom and dad now retired to Florida, and they call me up and like, I saw this bug outside, what is this? And I'm like, oh, that's nothing. Tell them what it is. And it was a fun career. And then, I was young, bought my first house. I was really successful at it. And then September 11th happened. And that kind of changed everything for a lot of people. It's kind of very similar to what we're going through now, where our lives were just disrupted and changed. And living in North Carolina, having a lot of friends that were in the military, obviously I felt a sense of need to give back to my community and be a part of that. So I was a volunteer fireman for a number of years, very involved with that. And then I went to work for the Department of Homeland Security. It started out as the Department of Army. So I did contract work. I was a civilian MP on a military post. And again, another fun job. I never expected to be in that situation.
Again, firefighter, MP, hairstylist, they generally don't mix, right? I mean,
doesn't mix.
That's not the standard.
It's just one of those things, and it was a blast. I learned a lot, and it gave me a ton of life lessons and met some awesome people, and got to serve my country in a capacity where I didn't necessarily have to leave my wife behind. She didn't sign up for that, for sure. We had been married for a couple years at that point, and there was no way she was going to let me join, the Army or Navy or any of the armed forces. So it allowed me to do something and get involved. And then after a few years, that definitely wore on the relationship and was tough. It was working odd hours and never being able to talk about when I was going to work or when I was coming home and how was your day. It was a day. Operational security was definitely a big part of that. So she had wanted to move away from North Carolina closer to her parents. Her parents were in Peoria, Illinois. And I said, well, I'd be down at some point if one of us could find a job. I'll move, sure. And before I knew it, she found a job in Southern Illinois, so we moved. And I remember I drove us across country. I took my 2 weeks vacation. I drove us to Southern Illinois, had no idea what I was getting myself into, and moved us into a tiny little apartment after having a nice big house, and spending 2 weeks getting everything settled, and then had to drive back and finish.
Sure.
I had to go back to work and then put in my 2 weeks notice. So I went back and worked 2 weeks, and Hurricane Charlie hit when I was on post, which meant for about 3 days while I could not be relieved, I was on post for 3 days. It was awful. I think we ate some MREs from like the 1970s.
MREs.
They had to be about the 70s because they still had a cigarette and they still had Tabasco sauce in it. But that was an interesting setback, and I was on third shift when I left, and I was like, well, I should probably, if I'm driving all night, I should probably drive at night home because I'm on this schedule, not thinking about finding a gas station in the middle of the night in the middle of the mountains. Not smart, but especially without cell phones at that point. And I finally made it to Illinois. I came into town. I was probably like 6 a.m. I called her. I said, hey, I'm on my way to the apartment. I made it. And she says, hey, there's a job fair at the Pepsi plant. She says, why don't you stop over there, see if you can get a job. So I drove straight through 15 hours, got to our apartment, showered, put a suit on, grabbed my resume, walked into the Pepsi job fair, and they were looking for drivers, and here I am in a suit. And the guy says, you are way overqualified. And I said, I need a job. So I actually ended up driving a truck for about 10 months while we lived there. Bought a house. I got a job opportunity in Peoria, which is where we wanted to go. So ended up in the middle of renovating a house, completely gutting it, and then needing to put it back together in 10 months at the same time as working and not knowing a single person in Illinois to help. Put it all together, ended up selling it within a week, and moved to Peoria, and I was running a body shop.
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
Something new.
Yeah.
So I did that for about 6 years in Peoria. Mainly started out, it was a tiny little, like 1,000 square foot shop, myself and the owner at the time, reconditioning cars for the dealerships, like used cars, bringing them in, buffing out scratches, airbrushing rock chips, cleaning them up. And then they kept asking for more. Well, can you do this bumper? Can you fix this corner of this bumper? And so I taught myself how to fix plastic and paint bumper corners and blend it. And again, art. So I'm into color theory. I could look at a color and see what it needed. And so I got really good at blending colors and matching them. And things kind of took off, and they just started getting bigger. When I left it there, we were at 20,000 square feet.
Wow.
I had 12 employees, 4 bodymen. I was a painter. We had 4 paint booths. That's all I did. I would go from one paint booth to the next all day long, 12, 14 hours, just paint, paint, paint. And I loved it. I loved the work. It was a lot of fun, and I hired good people. The culture I was creating was one of my own. I wanted people who respected each other and would just work hard and love what they did, love cars. I had a great clientele list, people who would bring in super expensive cars and have me fix them and then tell me to take it out for a joyride, you know, like, well, did you get in it? And like, no, it's not my car. Oh, you got to, here's the keys. It was a lot of fun, but I just didn't see myself doing that forever.
Yeah.
I'm like the environment, you know, going home every day, just feeling of clear coat and overspray and
Sure.
crunchy hair and colored nostrils. Just it wasn't what I wanted to do, and I had gone through a divorce and was trying to reconfigure my life and figure out what I wanted to do, and ultimately I was like, well, I want to move to a bigger market and I want to go do hair. When I was little, my aunt owned a beauty school, so I hung out there a lot when I was young with Mom. You know, she was always a guinea pig, or they would have me come in and be a guinea pig. And then when I was in high school, that's where all the girls were, especially the older girls. So Mama didn't raise no fool. And I just always really appreciated that the artistry of it. And once I decided to go back to school and actually do it, I learned that it was kind of the perfect combination between science and art, where I had color theory, I had the science of the structure of hair and what you can do with it, and the bonds and the chemistry behind it, and then the artistry, of course. So it was kind of the perfect of everything that I've ever wanted, and it was right there in front of me the whole time.
Sure.
But it was a cool journey to get there, you know, and I feel like because of my journey, it's given me a different perspective on most of our industry. Young men and women come out of school and they go right to beauty school. They know what they want. They want to do this. Whereas mine was a journey of learning other things and then saying, you know, I think this is where I should be. But now I have all this other experience of doing other things, of running businesses and working with people that of all age groups and economic classes and being able to hold my own. I feel like it just gave me a really unique...
Renaissance man, certainly.
Yeah, totally. Just, I like to get my hands into everything, you know. When I started out, I had major goals for myself. I never thought it would take me where it has. I mean, it's just one of those things where still to this day, I'm almost 10 years in, and I pinch myself every day.
Well, you're still a young man. I mean, you're having a blast with this, aren't you?
I love it. It's been definitely a challenging year, but I always knew that if I'm going to change my entire life at this point, or at that point in my life, in my late 30s, it's got to be something that I want to do for the long haul. There's no plan of like retirement or like just, okay, I'm done. That's not how I'm wired anyway. But I also had dreams of traveling. I love travel. I love being a part of something where the one downfall to our industry is you're a solo person. You know, like I work at a salon and as I'm part of a team, but for the most part, it's me. My chair is my rules. Everything is what I'm doing. It's not dependent on other people. So being a very team player, I think that's where the universe kind of found like, well, maybe you should do this. And it got me into fashion shows. at the very beginning, I was taking a ton of classes. I was just putting myself out there. I was meeting people that were way better than me in the industry, and I felt like the only way to be the best was to surround yourself with the best and try to emulate and find, okay, here's how you did it. Now how do I do it in my way?
Sure.
And it put me at the right place at the right time with the right attitude.
Yeah.
I met the right person. He gave me a shot at Fashion Week in New York, and I just took it from there. I got one shot. I went out there, and I was starstruck. I was like, this is it. It's been one of those experiences where I think 50-50, a stylist goes out to New York, they get backstage, they start doing it, and they're crying in tears, and they never want to see New York again. And then the others, they're addicted to it, and they can't get enough. And so twice a year, every year for the past 8 years, that's a huge part of my life. I really look forward to that atmosphere because it's not about you, it's not about your ego, it's not about what you can do. It's about what the team of stylists, no matter how many, some teams will be 40 stylists, some teams will be 10.
Okay.
You're stuffed into a back room and you have anywhere from 20 models to 60 models, and you got to do it, and they all have to look the same. And it's not about what you think is a better way to do it. Whoever's leading that show says, do it this way, you do it that way. And that team atmosphere is something that I really thrive in. I love being a part of something that's not just about me.
Well, it's theater. I mean, we look at this the same way. We're not just a bar, we're not just a restaurant, just a tour company. We are, in many ways, a theatrical production. And everybody's got a role. Everyone's got a part to play.
Yeah.
And there's a director, and this is the way we're going. This is the course. And I see the same thing with what you're doing. That's fantastic. So, Fashion Week, I think, is not taking place this year, is it?
No, it didn't. I had one designer from Chile that reached out to me and said he's doing a virtual show. So he got myself together to do the hair, a makeup artist. She was I think she was out of New York. A lot of the models that we've used from all over the world, he reached out to them. He created some virtual artists, got together and created them in a almost Tim Burton-esque 3D virtual view. Cool. He showed me his mood board for the clothes, what they were gonna look like and feel like, and I came up with a hair look. The illustrators put it on the little people, and they did a whole fashion show and released it on YouTube. It was incredible. It was
slick.
Super cool. It was something that I really needed at the time. Yeah. As far as with having this amazing outlet for creativity, and then all of a sudden it's just gone. The day-to-day gets harder, because you're not being inundated with things that inspire you.
It's stifling.
Absolutely.
Right.
When you're sitting at home, it's not like coming here and going, oh wow, that's a really cool architecture. That gives me an idea. Sure. When I'm sitting at home, you don't get that.
No, not so much.
Not so much.
Well, I say all the time that you find opportunities, and those opportunities come out of the darkest, most desperate times, and they really give you purpose in so many ways, and a purchase on what you're doing as well. And unfortunately, most people just don't have the capacity to reach out and to find that, either to go back to themselves or to look beyond. And so those artistic people are the coolest part of what I deal with on a daily basis, whether it can be, the food artistry or someone making cocktails, or just the people coming in with these extraordinary stories of what they do as well. And that is one of the things that makes us vital and viable. Yeah. And I see the same thing with you, which is wonderful. So in lieu of that, the ability of technology then to merge with I'm not sure what you call the craft of hairstyling, right? Which is truly the artistry that you have for the vision of something and how you transform it with your hands. But now that somebody else is doing something with the technology to make it into that storyboard and make it fly is incredibly cool. Yeah. And I got to think that there's a future for that way beyond the pandemic as well, right?
For sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Nice.
And I think that maybe, I would like to see things in the fashion world come back to that. I don't know if it will happen. That's definitely, I think, one of the industries, like the restaurant industry, that has just been really decimated. Yep. That's going to be a a hurting one for a while, which again breaks my heart. It's one of those things where when you're an artist, I think a true artist, no matter what medium you're dealing with, whether it's food, whether it's hair, sculpture, clothing, anytime someone can put their passion into something that they love so much and then make a living off of it and become successful, I have so much respect for that. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that drew me to the fashion world was I remember being a young artist and thinking, I want to do this. I want to be an artist. And back then it was drawing comic books and making my own comics and painting and stuff like that. And you know, you hear a lot of people like, well, you're just going to be a starving artist, like grow up and go to school and get a good job. And then, you know, several times in my life, I'm like, no, I don't have to do that. I don't. I got to figure out a way. And here I am in my 40s and I'm like, I found it and this is amazing. And so when I see someone who has done the same things in a different aspect, like I said, even just food culture in our country now compared to 10, 15, 20 years ago is amazing. And chefs and what they can come up with, and that was the one thing that kept me going during the shutdown, was learning more how to cook, and it gave me something to do with my hands. You know, like, okay, well, I can't cut hair, I might as well work on my knife skills and learn how to prepare, you know, like an onion better. But just the awesome world of artistry and looking around at the everyday artist.
Art is alive.
And seeing like, wow, that's awesome that you're making a living, and then seeing it kind of crumble for some people is just heartbreaking. But I feel like those people have the drive in the first place, they'll figure out a way, you know, and we'll reinvent that. It's not out of the realm of possibilities. Obviously, technology can play a role on getting your art out there. But I also think that, you know, I've racked my brains, like, how do I go about, I love teaching. Teaching is probably one of my biggest passions, because as much as I love doing, I love sharing, talking about it, and teaching
you're
others.
empowering other people, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
So whether it's empowering my clients on how to do their hair and how to do things at home without me, it's just as equally so when I meet a new stylist or a stylist who's been doing something 60 years and I can just like change one little perspective of like, have you ever thought about this? Because like I said, that's where my niche was. It's I look at things differently. I have a different worldview, and it's been very helpful. And I've thought about how do I use technology to do that, but then I don't know if it's my ego that gets in the way, or just the fact that I feel like I'm not giving you value if you don't get the most out of it. And I would feel like it would be the same if you're trying to teach someone how to cook online. It's not the same. Like being able to show somebody like, oh, if you just turn your hand a little bit or grip the knife a little bit better when you're cutting, same thing with scissors. Like I can't catch that if you're playing a video of me talking. You don't see those little details, and that little detail is what separates me from other instructors. So that part is like, I don't think I can do it.
Well, and
I don't feel like
so much of what I do cooking is predicated on the smell as well. So you can't get that obviously on your monitor, right? But I can show people all sorts of different ways to use the exact same spices and to build flavors on something rather than just throw something on top that's not going to have that effect. But you do that because all the senses are really in play, and you're tasting as you're going as well. So this is what happens when you do this. There's a nice monitor, it's a nice picture, but you miss all that.
And you don't know. For me, I think I would learn better if I'm doing it side by side, but I'm able to also taste the difference, because it may have been just, oh, I did one thing differently and now I have a total different taste. You can't do that through technology. So I think that's the one limitation that I see for myself, that I'm like, I can't do that. I can't bring myself down just for the sake of making more money. where that's not why I did it in the first place. I did it
Sure.
because I love seeing the light bulb go off.
Yeah.
And seeing the like, oh my gosh, that moment.
Yep.
And you don't get that when someone's just downloading something that you.
Right on. So, of all the places you've been, what do you like the most, man? Is the art in Barcelona? Is it the food? Is it the what have you really seen that's really made a difference outside of the U.S.?
I think food, culture. I remember going to Florence, and I've never been one to like go to all the touristy things and take pictures and take tours. I just want to sit at a cafe, drink some coffee or a glass of wine, and watch the world
Absorb
go by.
life.
And just watch.
Yeah.
I love learning from different cultures.
Sure.
and taking little bits and pieces and saying, you know what, my life would be better if I did that. It's kind of the way I've always looked at art, a craft, whatever you're doing. I think of my obsession when I was young with feudal Japan and the samurai code, where if you're an archer, you spend your life trying to perfect archery. Or if you're a blacksmith and you spend your life to perfect making that katana. And I feel like that's my drive, like mastery, just the search for mastery, whether it was pest control or painting cars or doing hair. It's like, I know my personal creativity is not, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm not going to come up with the new style, but I do know how to take stuff that I really like and dissect it and make it better, make it more efficient, make it easier. Taking what I know from science and what I know from technique and putting that together and say, well, why haven't you always done this? Doesn't make any sense. And again, I think that's just my experience from other things lending into what I do now.
Sure. What is your favorite? What's your favorite food experience? Something you haven't made, something that you experienced somewhere else.
Ooh, that's a good question. So many.
How about this? The category: was it seafood? Was it land animal? Was it protein? Was it vegetarian? Was it?
I would say my favorite food is seafood.
Okay.
My favorite experience with food was at this dinner in Rome that was unlike anything I'd ever done. We sat there for 6 hours and just ate. And I never felt like, oh my God, I can't eat anymore. I just kept, this is amazing. Everything was just the
experiential,
preparation.
right?
Yes,
yeah.
yes. It
yeah.
transcended everything, anything I'd ever experienced before when it came to what dinner could actually be, where I don't know how many bottles of wine we went through and
the right amount, that's the answer.
Yeah, exactly. It was just, course after course after course, and
Sure.
just all the flavors, and it was just like, wow.
Cool. How about your favorite restaurant in the U.S.?
Oof, that's a good question. Favorite restaurant in the U.S.?
Prior to COVID.
It's a really good question. I have my creature of habit restaurants. I'm trying to think of my favorite in the U.S.
Mine is El Siboney in Key West.
Yeah?
Yeah. I would fly there just to go have dinner there.
Was it the experience, the food, just
Combination.
everything?
It's authentic Cuban.
Okay.
And
love Cuban
people
food.
often talk about Cuban and they think about going to Versailles in Miami. Versailles can't hold a candle to El Siboney. And there's nothing remotely in the Midwest that comes close to that style of authenticity for Cuban food.
Yeah.
So that, I would have said at one point before that, probably Charlie Trotter's in Chicago.
Okay.
Charlie's been dead now for about 8 years, I think, 6 years. But that would have been that answer beforehand.
Yeah.
So back to you.
Trying to pick just one. I mean, if I was thinking like Southern comfort food, Hattie B's in Nashville, barbecue in North Carolina, barbecue in Texas, barbecue in Missouri.
Got some beautiful brisket here, by the way. So
Yeah?
perhaps we'll do that for the salon party for you guys.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Why not? Okay.
Right?
Cool.
There was a restaurant we used to go to every Monday when I lived in North Carolina called Hieronymus. And they always had like all you can eat crab legs, whatever the market value at the time was. But if you were a local, you got it for $10.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good to be local.
So I would go in there every Monday. It was a ritual.
Yeah.
And
How could you not?
crab legs and mussels, and I would just eat myself silly. Because crab legs you can eat pound after pound after pound and not.
Pure protein.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're not getting
Yep.
full.
Yep.
I have one bowl of rice and I'm like, okay, I'm done.
Well, that bowl of rice is what's kept millions of people alive in the
Right?
Pacific East forever.
Because you don't need a ton of it.
Yep.
You can sustain yourself on that.
So you're drinking our Shadow People Lager today, but typically, what do you like in a beer?
I like dark, creamy stouts, porters.
I hope this worked.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Okay.
Nice, smooth finish. I don't like anything overly hoppy, so I stay away from most
IPAs, the
and-
crazy
yeah,
IPA
it's just
movement going on. Yeah.
Never been my thing.
Yeah.
It reminds me of sitting on my grandpa's lap and drinking his Stag or whatever he was drinking at the time, like
Sure.
taking a sip and going, "Ugh, you drink that?"
Yeah.
Yeah. With
Well,
his sardines and
Typically,
crackers.
we're doing bourbons here, so obviously, in deference to you. Do you get into rums at all?
I really like rum. Usually the only time I drink rum is when I'm in the Caribbean. I love tequila. Tequila is, I think, the only sipping alcohol I've ever really enjoyed. You know, every once in a while, some scotch, some bourbon. I've tasted a few here and there, and I'm like, meh.
Ever think about creating your own spirit?
I've never thought about it.
You know, it's not unknown in your industry to have some people that have gone forth and to have created that product.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay,
Are you getting to something?
maybe. I'm always looking around for something.
All right.
What about some crazy New York stories? Like Stanley Tucci?
Crazy New York stories? That is a good one.
So Manhattan, Brooklyn, where?
Manhattan.
Okay.
Actually, this one was pretty funny. My girlfriend and I took a day off. I wasn't working, and she wasn't going to shows, and so we're walking down in Manhattan, shopping, going in and out of stores, talking, and most of the time when that happens, I'm not paying attention.
Yeah.
I get into the conversation, and the world goes away. And this couple had walked out of a boutique in front of us, and I ran into the guy and I knocked him down. I was like, "Oh shit, sorry!" And I grabbed it. I reached down to help him up. I was like, "I'm so sorry, I didn't see you. That was totally my fault." And he was like, "It's okay, it's okay." And I was like, "Oh my God, you're Stanley Tucci." And I was just kind of struck because I just ran over Stanley Tucci and knocked him down. And then he proceeds to tell me that I was the nicest person that ever knocked him down.
For our reviewers' sake, who is Stanley Tucci?
Stanley Tucci's an actor. He's been in many, many things. He's usually a character that is not top bill, so you may not think of him right away. But,
Sure.
Everything from Captain America to Devil Wears Prada to Hunger Games. He's been in it all. And I always like his characters. And of course, being in the hair industry and working in Fashion Week, the first thing I say is, "Oh my God, I loved you in Devil Wears Prada." I couldn't have said something a little more manly. But,
Captain America, Prada, it's the same thing, right?
Totally. So we walked by, and I was like, "Man, I should have got his picture, like a selfie with him or something." I don't ever think about stuff like that, and it's just kind of a funny story. And that was September, and then the very next year in October, I was out in LA doing a fashion show for Vogue, the CFDA Fashion Fund Award.
Okay.
And so I was there for 4 days, but I only had to work one. So one of those days, again, I dragged my girlfriend along. We went over to Rodeo Drive.
Sand of the beach. You're taking sand of the beach, but okay.
We go over to Rodeo Drive, and we're shopping, and we're walking through the stores. And we walk out of a store, and this guy runs right into me. Wasn't paying attention, was on his phone, walking with his wife. Who is it? Stanley Tucci. I said, "You gotta be kidding me." And he looks at me and he says, "Your hair's longer." And I was like, "You remember? I knocked you down?" He was like, "How could I forget
Well,
the nicest person
perhaps
that's
it's not the down portion that he remembered, and therefore by association, yeah. Cool.
So yeah, that was a really funny experience. And I said, "Okay, so next year, are we planning on Michigan Avenue in Chicago? Because we pretty much hit all the main shopping of the biggest cities." So yeah, that was
that's cool.
Funny experience. Like,
Get a picture this time?
no, I didn't.
And
My
again, so
girlfriend,
third time.
Who I know, I said, "Here, can you take a picture?" And or I said, "Can I get a picture with you this time?" He's like, "Yeah, that'll be great." And then so I I was going to do it like this, a selfie, and my girlfriend's like, no, I'll take it. And of course, I'm her Instagram boyfriend for years. And so she takes 2 or 3 snaps and says, "Okay, I got it." And I'm like, "Did you get it?" And she's like, "Yeah, I got it." I was like, "Thank you so much, take care." And we walk away, and I was like, "Here, show me my phone." And I looked at, no pictures. I'm like, "Thanks. You know how many pictures of you I've taken?" I asked once.
Yeah, well, dames.
So that's the way it goes.
Cool.
She loves when I tell that story, too.
I'm sure she does, yeah. So you guys have obviously just opened up in Chicago, right? So you're in Milwaukee, you're in Mequon, now Chicago. That's got to be a thrill.
Yeah.
I've had great stories and success myself in Chicago, but what's it like comparatively?
I have not gone down there yet.
Okay.
We're still kind of finishing the build out.
Okay.
I know that's the plan, probably spring,
Okay.
I'm assuming. I think right now, because there's kind
of a moratorium anyway, right?
well,
new business
Chicago
opening.
doesn't want Wisconsin coming down there.
Of course not.
So that's a whole COVID mess.
Sure. Okay.
I'm looking forward to it, though. I think it'll be great. It'll be good to have a little bit of home travel. It's so funny. We live so close to Chicago, and Chicago is such a great city. And every time I go there, I have an amazing experience. And I don't know Chicago. I get lost so fast. I go to New York. I know where I'm at. I know where I'm going.
Thank God for GPS, right?
And I go to Chicago, and I'm like, where am I? It's such a, I don't know, I just don't.
John Hancock, is that new? It's
right? I just don't spend any time there.
Sure.
So I'm looking forward to that, just getting to know the city a little bit better. I've got a lot of friends down there, stylist friends. So it should be cool. Again, small boutique. I think we got the right mindset for going down there. Nothing big and.
Well, because of our producer, Patrick, we have had exposure on this program to have a large number of people that are in the fashion industry come forward and to sit where you're sitting right now and have a chat with us. And I'm slain every time to think about the incredible talent that's in the Milwaukee metropolitan area that has a significant impact on fashion and has been in it for years.
Yeah.
But you'd never think that about Milwaukee at all.
Not at all. That's one of my favorite things about Milwaukee. I get asked a lot, how did you get from North Carolina to Wisconsin? in Milwaukee. If you would if someone would have said 11 years ago, "Oh, you're going to end up in Milwaukee," I would have been where?
Well, divine intervention?
Never on the radar.
Right.
But when I came here, it was, for me, the perfect size. It's big enough to have culture, small enough to have a sense of community, to where I live downtown, I work downtown, I don't own a car. I walk everywhere. And everywhere I go, even though my walk to work is about 10, 12 minutes, my walk home from work could be an hour, 2. It's a good feeling.
Yep.
And no matter where I've lived, this is the first place that I felt this was home. Like walking down the street and hearing your name called out, Parker, and then it ends up into an hour conversation.
There
and a drink.
is something really special about Milwaukee.
It's
and
very cool.
Having myself also been around the world, there are some just cool things about the city that just continue on. They're pervasive, and it just keeps pulling you back.
Yeah, for sure.
So there might be greater opportunity other places, but just for the standard of living, the quality of life here, the people that you meet, this is home.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very cool. And if you need to, you're an hour and a half away from one of the biggest cities in the country.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Easy airport to fly out of.
It is that.
So yeah. Just,
Well, not this year, but
not right now. But that was my favorite part, is that, well, if I live here, I can work and I can travel. If I lived in New York, I would never travel.
Right.
Never. It just.
So where is your first stop going to be? Where are you going to go, away from work orientated, but when you have the opportunity to get back on a plane and fly somewhere for pleasure, where are you guys going?
I think, well, on the list this year, that was supposed to happen, the big ones were Malaga, Spain, Stockholm, and London, and Tokyo. So those didn't happen. I may choose one of those, not for work, but just to go play. So,
London, love Spain. Any opportunity to get yourself down to Cuba, I'd recommend that you do that.
Yeah.
And maybe you could do that under the auspice of, as professional in what you do for hair as well and style, to go down there to see what's taking place and interact. It has got a vibe that is nothing like you'll find in Florida or frankly any other island. It's nothing like that. And it's almost like really an offshoot of Spain, and yet it's stuck in this vortex, this little vacuum of 70 years.
yeah.
But the people are fantastic, and the vibrancy, the architecture, both that remains and the crumbling detritus of what has decayed over 70 years. But
Right.
you have a chance to go, I suggest you do that.
I'll have to check that out. That's always been on my list, especially in recent years. The more people that I know have gone there and came back and said it's amazing.
Well, don't expect the food like you've experienced here in Milwaukee
Oh,
for
for sure.
Cuban food. It's nothing like that at all. I know you
Yeah.
have a Cuban joint right next door to you, but
Yeah,
it's nothing like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love, one of my favorite places to be is Central America. I've spent a lot of time in Costa Rica.
Costa Rica, yeah.
Nicaragua, Panama. I love Central America.
Don't go to Guatemala.
Especially Costa Rica.
Yep.
I love Guatemalan coffee.
Close as you want to get. Take my advice on that.
It's
Close
as
as you want
good
to
as
get.
I need.
Yeah.
But yeah, and again, their food, like the best food was something else. It was, here's an Israeli joint, here's a pizza joint. Costa Rican food is just beans and rice and whatever meat you can find.
Oh, the produce is exquisite, isn't it?
Yep.
Best produce that I've had in the world is found in
Absolutely.
Costa Rica.
I wouldn't be a coffee drinker if it wasn't for that first trip.
Yep.
I never touched coffee, and now I can't get
Yep.
enough.
Well, Colombia has got some nice coffee as well. And you
It's
get to
true.
Cartagena, beautiful city, 1500s, dynamic culture, incredibly friendly people.
Yeah.
And fortuitously, most of those drug cartels have moved out of there into Guatemala, but they've left Colombia, so it's a much safer environment
Safer,
than it has
nicer
been the last 30 or
environment.
40 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd
Cool.
Love to be down there too, for sure.
Anything you want to talk about, man? Where do you want to go?
I don't know.
It's your dime.
I don't know.
Okay. Hey there, producer. Any thoughts? Okay. Parker, I enjoyed having you in today,
Yeah,
and
thanks for
thank you for
having
your
me.
time. And I'm
Appreciate
looking
it.
forward to that big Scott-free salon party next week.
Yeah.
And cheers, brother, to new travels and travails and all those beautiful things that make life worthwhile.
Appreciate it, my friend.
Cool. For those of you that tuned in, we appreciate your time, and please send us those emails, any questions whatsoever, and see you soon. Cheers.